Okay, so in this video I'm going to go over 7.1 here in the book, page 127 to 131, which is about human nutrition. And if you haven't done so, it's a very good idea to be sure that you know chapter 4, biological molecules, before going into chapter 7, because these two are connected. So a good question is, of course, how much energy do you need in your diet? And that, of course, depends on who you are and what you're doing. So, banana like this here is about 100 calories. Yep, I'm still counting calories because that's what I learned. And to see how much calorie intake someone like me needs, we need to do some calculations. So here we are looking at how to calculate basic metabolic rate. It's not part of the syllabus. The syllabus only states that we have different metabolic needs, but I just want to show you how you can calculate it. I'm using a pretty much standard BMR calculator, and be aware that they do average, so you can't use this to say specifically how much your need is. It is taken as an average over the population. So here we have a male, 25 years old, 180 centimeters tall and 60 kilos. And they have a basic metabolic rate of 1,600, which is the amount of calories their body will use just laying completely still. And you can see that if they have a intense daily exercise, physical job, they will spend about the double, around 3,000. Okay, let's then look at a girl, 16 years old, 165 and 60 kilos, and we calculate, and we can see that in general for girls the basic metabolic rate is lower, because as a general standard, girls tend to have a lower muscle mass than boys, and that will affect the metabolic rate. Now, in the sake of honesty, we can use me as an example. I'm a little older, a little taller, and also, unfortunately, a lot heavier. So for me, I have a basic metabolic rate here at about 1,800, and also saying that, and that's for female, and this is counting as male. Yeah, now the numbers are better. Have a basic metabolic rate of 2,000, and if I have a daily exercise, or which I usually do, it's around 3,100 calories I need a day to neither gain weight or put on weight, and that fits pretty well with my own calculations and when I monitor myself. So how to find out how many calories there are in food? Well, you can of course use a online program, or on all kinds of food you buy here in Denmark. There'll always be a list here saying how many calories are in it. So in a serving of this tomato soup, for example, here, I can see that the full can contains 230 calories, which means that I could have at least 10 cans of these a day. For obvious reasons, I won't have 10 cans of tomato soup every day, but I could. So in general, energy need depends on our age, body weight, and our size and activity level. But there are a few other things. Pregnant women tend to have a higher energy need because they need also to supply energy for the fetus growing inside them. They also need extra vitamins and extra calcium and iron to build the baby's bones and blood. Children, when they're growing, of course, has a high energy need and a high need for vitamins. We're going to talk about that later. And when we get older, our energy need tends to drop as our metabolism slows down. Why that is, scientists are not entirely sure. It might be an age thing. It can also be because as we grow older, in our 50s and 60s, we tend to do less sport and move less, and thereby reducing our need for calories in our diet. So there are 3 types of macronutrients here covered in the syllabus. There's a 4th, alcohol, but that is not covered. But there are 3 main nutrient types we need to talk about. And the first one is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates we can find in stuff like pasta or in rice, bread, fruit, and they can either be long chain polysaccharides or short chain sugar monosaccharides, as we talked about in chapter 4. And in general, our body uses carbohydrates for fast energy. We can burn carbohydrates fast with oxygen and get a lot of energy, ATP, from it. So for fast energy, for movement of muscle, carbohydrates are very effective. 1 gram of carbohydrates contain 4 calories. Our second macronutrient are fats. Fats can be found in olive oil, as this. It can be found in fat fish. It can be found in nuts, seeds, butter, cheese, fat meats. And unlike carbohydrates, who contains 4 calories per gram, they contain 9 calories per gram. So there's a lot of energy in fat. Fat can be burned for energy. It is released a lot slower than carbohydrates. So it doesn't work well for running fast, but for keeping on your metabolism going for a long time, fats are good. We also need them for our nervous system, for development of our brain, for isolation and so on. So we need fat in our diet as well. But if we have too much fat in our diet, well, it's an easy way to get too many calories, and if we have more calories than we need, we will put on weight in the form of body fat. Last micronutrient, it's also very important, protein. Protein are long chains of amino acids, and when we get them into our body, we break them down into amino acids and use them to rebuild our body. It is needed for building enzymes, for repairing muscle cells, building antibodies, for building all the proteins we need in our body. So if we have a diet without protein, we get in trouble. And we get protein from stuff like here, tuna fish. We can get it from meat. We can get it from vegetable sources. Lentils, beans are good there, tofu. But we need to have enough protein to keep our body healthy. These 3 here are different. That I can store a lot of fat on my body. Some will say I already do. We can store fat for quite some time in our body. We can store some carbohydrates in the form of glycogen in our body, but we can't really store extra amino acids. So we need protein in our daily diet to make sure we're healthy. Vitamins are organic substances that we only need in small amounts. So where fats, protein and carbohydrates are called macronutrients, we call these for micronutrients because we need them in much smaller doses, but we do need them. Cambridge use here as example vitamin C and vitamin D, but do know that there are many more. They just use these 2 here as examples. So for example, vitamin C can be found in fruit and vegetables, especially in citrus fruit, oranges, so on. And we need them to make collagen, which is the protein that holds our tissue together, supports our skin, healthy mouth, so on. We also need it for our immune system. And if we don't have enough vitamin C in our diet, we get the disease that is called scurvy. And if you ever seen some of the old pirate movies like Pirate of the Caribbean, many of the pirates are shown to be missing teeth. And that's not just from fights, that is from scurvy, where you tend to drop your teeth due to lack of vitamin C, because people on long sea journeys often didn't get enough fresh vegetables. The other one that's stated here is vitamin D, and we get vitamin D from stuff like butter, eggs, fish, but also we can make it ourselves. When sunlight hits our skin, we make vitamin D. That also means that in a country like Denmark, we tend to have a lower concentration of vitamin D during the winter, because Danish winter is, to be honest, grey and boring. If we lack vitamin D, we can get the disease rickets, where the bones become soft and deformed, and we need vitamin D mainly for absorbing calcium for our bone, but it's also very important in stuff like hormonal health, immune system, and might even have an effect on stuff like depression. So in general, we know that it's important to have a healthy vitamin D level. Again, be aware that Cambridge only scratches the surface here. There's way more to learn if you're into it. We also need minerals in our diet. Minerals are inorganic substances, and we only need small amounts of them in our diet, but if we don't have them, we can get different diseases. Again, be aware there are many, many more than Cambridge mentioned here, but Cambridge mentioned calcium and iron. Calcium, which you might remember we talked about when we talked about vitamin D, is needed for building strong bones, is made for strong teeth, and also for blood clotting. And we get it from stuff like milk, bread, and different vegetables. And again, if we don't have enough calcium, we get the same problems that if we don't have enough vitamin D, which is mainly brittle bones, hard for bone fractures to heal, but also poor blood clotting, which can be a serious condition. Iron can be found in stuff like liver, red meat, different dark vegetables, also stuff like red wine and chocolate. And it's used for making hemoglobin, which we'll talk about later, which is the part that makes our blood red and is crucial in transporting oxygen in our circulatory system. So if we don't have enough iron in our diet, it becomes hard for our body to build new blood cells, and we then will have what's called anemia, where we have a lower transportation of oxygen around our body than needed, and people will then become very tired. So we need macronutrients, we need vitamins, and we need minerals, but we also need something else in a healthy diet. And one thing that we know a lot about now is important is fiber. Fibers are the part of the diet that's actually hard for the body to digest. Now, when stuff moves through our gut, it does so because the muscles around our gut keep making peristaltic movements. And the muscles are stimulated to do so when there's food inside. Soft food like white bread, bananas don't really stimulate that much. But when we had food that's harder to digest, like fiber, in our gut, it will keep our digestive system in good working order, and it will help either having a too loose or too hard stool. So it's important to have fiber in our diet. We also know now that good fiber in our diet helps keeping our bacteria in our gut healthy, and thereby keeping us healthy. Good source of fiber can be husk, the outer husk of cereal grains, such as oat, wheat, and barley. This is called bran, and we got a lot of it in like wholemeal bread, brown rice, and so on. The last but perhaps most important part of a nutrient is water. More than 6% of the human body is made of water, so if we don't rehydrate every day, we very quickly get sick. How much water we need, of course, depends on how active we are and how hot it is outside. So in general, that goes from like 1-2 liters a day, if we're like sitting very still, to a lot more if we're active in a hot environment. Inside our cells, all the chemical reaction depends on water. So if there's no water, there's no life. Our circulatory system depends on water. So if we dehydrate, our blood pressure starts dropping. That gives us problems. When we dehydrate, we get a headache. It also feels bad. We don't need to lose that many percent of body water before our health starts to deteriorate. So we also need water to get rid of our waste products in the kidney, and we'll talk about that a lot later in chapter 13. So we get most of our water from drinking, but also from eating stuff like salad, tomatoes, cucumbers, and so on, which contains water.